Have you ever wondered if your personality could actually make you more physically attractive? Science suggests the answer is yes, but it works differently than you might think. In this video, I'll show you how traits and behaviors can transform how others perceive your looks. No makeover required. I'm Dr. Thomas Smithyman, clinical psychologist and author. If you've ever felt that attractiveness is just about genetics or physical features, then think again. Today, we're diving into groundbreaking psychological and neuroscience research to reveal how perceptions of attractiveness shift based on who you are and how you act. So what traits drive this shift? And how do they impact others' perceptions of physical beauty? Well, stick around because I'll break down key findings from psychology studies, I'll show real-world examples, and I'll reveal the unexpected ways that personality and behavior shape beauty. You'll also get practical tips to boost how others see you. The backwards halo effect. You might have heard of the halo effect. Essentially, the halo effect is when someone who is good looking is also perceived as more confident, smart, friendly, and trustworthy. It's a great deal if you're naturally attractive, but for the rest of us, just hearing be better looking isn't exactly actionable advice. Fortunately, researchers have spent over 40 years studying the reverse, how a good personality can make someone appear better looking. When we talk about physical beauty, we often assume that it's judged logically and objectively. But if you dig into the science of beauty, you'll start to see all kinds of discussions about mathematical formulas, like the golden ratio, the Fibonacci sequence, or the fourths and fifths method. It makes beauty seem like it's all about numbers and proportions. But let's be honest, humans are not cold, logical machines. We are emotional and we are easily influenced. Just think about optical illusions. Even when we know something isn't real, our brains can still get fooled into seeing things that aren't there. And the same thing can happen when we judge beauty. Our emotions can override our logic. Here's a fun example. Research shows that people rate faces as less attractive after being shown disgusting images, which I will not show you, so feel free to imagine that if you're into it. The faces didn't change, but the participants' emotional response did. Another study found that bad smells, like body odor, made people rate faces as less attractive. Based on what we know so far, people's perceptions of physical attractiveness can be influenced by their emotions and even the smells in the room. So if you can, go meet people or go on dates in beautiful places and maybe bathe occasionally. But we need to dig a little deeper. There's a lot more to this. Let's consider the ways that personality can impact how attractive someone looks. Have you ever met someone who didn't catch your eye at first but seemed more attractive as you got to know them? Or perhaps the opposite. Someone you thought was good looking at first, but over time they became less appealing. I'm guessing you've probably experienced both. So back in the 70s, researchers began exploring the idea that personality could affect not only how likable someone is, but also how we perceive their physical appearance. Here's how the studies were set up. And imagine you were taking part. Researchers would show photos of people's faces. And along with these photos, they'd also provide personality descriptions to explain what the person was like. So the descriptions varied. For example, one face might come with a description that said the person was decent and honest, where another would be described as evil and mean. Other traits included words like humorous and mature, intelligent, polite and helpful, or more negative ones like abusive, offensive and unstable, cruel or rude. In some studies, the personality descriptions were short, while others included more detailed stories. For example, one description read, "During my commute downtown, I see a lot of homeless people. One day, I saw a homeless woman walking her dog. I pulled over and gave her some money." And in contrast, another description read, "When I was younger, I worked for my dad in the produce business. I felt underpaid and thought I deserved more, so I took money from him to make up for it." Another study used descriptions like, "A former roommate described Susan as very trustworthy, always asking permission before borrowing her things. She also said that Susan once found a wallet containing a large amount of cash. Susan promptly returned the wallet and all the money, versus a former roommate described Ed as somewhat untrustworthy, almost never asking permission before borrowing his things. He also said that Ed once found a wallet containing a large amount of cash. Ed promptly returned the wallet, but kept the money. Another study even used cartoon versions of moral scenarios to test how people's judgments shifted based on these. So as you watched, did you feel that these had any impact on you? Let me know in the comments. Photos paired with positive personality traits were rated as more physically attractive, while those with negative traits were rated as less attractive. Again, I don't just mean they seemed more likable. I mean, they were actually perceived to be better looking. The findings consistently showed that good personality traits made people appear more attractive. You might be asking, what specific traits make someone seem more physically attractive? So based on these studies, 3 key traits stand out: integrity and honesty, warmth and kindness, and helpfulness and generosity. So knowing these traits is a good starting point, but there's a lot more to this. To fully understand how personality influences attractiveness, we need to dig a little bit into what drives this effect. There's an important underlying factor that ties everything together, and I'll get to that shortly. But an important note, this effect isn't limited to people who are already considered attractive. Whether someone is rated as above average, average looking, or below average, these personality traits can influence how others perceive them. In short, the impact of personality on physical attractiveness applies to everyone. So some people have told me, sure, I can see how a woman might find a man more attractive if he has a good personality, but men will not be affected by that. They argue that men are either more logical or too focused on physical appearance to be influenced by personality. However, research consistently shows that personality impacts physical attractiveness for both men and women. That said, the effect is a bit stronger for women than for men, so the skeptics are partially right. But here's a funny example from one study. The researchers found that while negative personality traits lowered attractiveness ratings for both genders, men's ratings were less affected by descriptions like, she plagiarized her master's thesis, she's part of a drug dealing group, or she scammed her friends in a pyramid scheme. I know what some of you are thinking. Wait, she's also rich? You might be thinking, okay, that's interesting, but how does this apply to my life? When would anyone ever judge me based on a photo and a short description of my personality? Well, apparently you haven't been on a dating app recently. Congratulations. It's not going great. But seriously, even though the studies use photos and personality descriptions, they're pointing at a human psychological process, and they reflect the ways that we naturally form impressions of people. And luckily there is a study that really puts this idea to the test by looking at how it applies in real life. It's fascinating. So instead of just showing strangers photos to rate, this study also collected ratings from people who actually knew the individuals. This makes the results more meaningful since it tests how personal interactions shape attractiveness. Here are 2 examples from the study that I find especially compelling. In part 1 of the study, participants rated yearbook photos for physical attractiveness. These ratings were then compared to ratings given by people who knew the individuals in the photos personally. The results were clear. Knowing someone personally had a strong effect on how attractive they were perceived. In fact, non-physical traits played a big role in shaping these perceptions. One anecdote from the study captures this perfectly. A participant identified one man's photo as the least attractive. To the researchers and the stranger who also rated the photo, the man appeared fairly average in looks. But when asked why she found him so physically unappealing, the participant's face twisted with disgust as she described him as a horrible person with a foul mouth. Even though these qualities had nothing to do with his physical features, she perceived him as physically repulsive. In another study from the same paper, the researchers followed students in a 6-week summer archaeology course. The students spent 5 days a week, 8 hours a day together. On the first day, they rated each other's physical attractiveness, like before getting to know each other. Then, at the end of the 6 weeks, they rated each other again after having interacted for the entire course. The results showed a big shift in ratings over time. For example, one woman was initially rated as below average in attractiveness on the first day of class. But by the end of the course, after becoming a well-liked and hardworking member of the group, her physical attractiveness rating jumped from a 3.25 up to a 7 on a 9-point scale. In other words, simply getting to know her had transformed how good-looking she seemed to others. These examples show that physical attractiveness isn't just about looks. It's shaped by how we connect and interact with others, proving that personality does impact how we're perceived. This result is explained by interaction appearance theory, which suggests that our perceptions of someone's appearance changes through interaction. Positive social interactions, like engaging conversations or kind actions, enhance attractiveness over time, while negative interactions are the opposite. To really understand this idea, we need to understand why it works. This can help you create what I call a psychological glow-up. And neuroscience gives us a useful clue. So brain activity in the medial orbitofrontal cortex, part of the brain that is linked to rewards, lights up both when we see attractive faces and when we observe kind behavior. In other words, beauty and kindness are processed in similar ways in the brain. On the other hand, the insular cortex, which is involved with negative emotions, responds to both unattractive faces and selfish behavior. So this overlap in brain responses might explain partly why we often find positive people more attractive, and why personality can impact how attractive someone seems. And from an evolutionary perspective, this makes total sense. So if our ultimate evolutionary goal is to survive to have children who have children, then physical indicators of health, so things like clear skin, facial symmetry, average features, are important because they indicate genetic health. But personality traits also play a big role because they signal someone's potential to be a good partner and a parent. These qualities are at least as crucial to passing along our genes long-term as physical traits. So this leads us directly to what I believe is the key takeaway from all of this. The best explanation found in the research for the impact of personality on beauty. Okay, so several studies that looked at this on a deeper level found roughly the same thing. Positive traits don't lead directly to increases in physical attractiveness. Instead, positive traits led to an increase in liking, like as in friendship. And that liking in turn led to an increase in physical attractiveness. So the beauty tip from all this is, if you want to enhance your physical attractiveness, become a valuable social partner. If you want to become better looking, become better liked. Okay, let's wrap this up. Personality plays a huge role in how attractive you seem, and can even change how people perceive your physical appearance. So, the next time you're in a social setting, or even just walking down the street, feeling like you're not good looking enough, remember this: your attractiveness is partly shaped by the person you show yourself to be. It's easy to think that looks are everything, but they're just not. Even your looks aren't just about your looks. By improving your social and friendship skills, you naturally boost your physical attractiveness. If you found this video helpful and you want to learn more ways to enhance your attractiveness, there's more to explore. This video focused on how personality and behavior influence physical beauty. But did you know there are other non-physical factors that play an even bigger role? Click on the next video to discover the surprising ways you can boost your overall appeal. No extreme makeovers required.